Śrīmad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Swami Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda ki, Grantara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki, Go Premanandi, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories Sri Guru and Sri Gaura. Narayanam namaskritya naram cheva narotamam devyam sarasvatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 12. Chapter entitled Dhruva Maharaj Goes Back to Godhead, text number 23. Sunanda Nanda Vuchatu. Sunanda Nanda Vuchatu. Bobora Jan Subhadram Te. Bobora Jan Subhadram Te. Vacham no Vahita Shrinu. Vacham no Vahita Shrinu. Yapancha Varshas Tapasa. Yapancha Varshas Tapasa. Bhavandevam Mati Tripat. Bhavandevam Mati Tripat. Sunanda Nanda Vuchatu. Sunanda Nanda Vuchatu. Bobora Jan Subhadram Te. Bobora Jan Subhadram Te. Vacham no Vahita Shrinu. Vacham no Vahita Shrinu. Yapancha Varshas Tapasa. Yapancha Varshas Tapasa. Bhavandevam Mati Tripat. Bhavandevam Mati Tripat. Sunandananda Vuchatuhu. Sunandananda Vuchatuhu. Bobora Jan Subhadram Te. Bobora Jan Subhadram Te. Vacham no Vahita Srinu. Yapancha Varshas Tapasa. Bhavandevam Mati Tripat. Sunandananda Vuchatu. Sunandananda Vuchatu. Bobora Jan Subhadram Te. Bobora Jan Subhadram Te. Vacham no Vahita Srinu. Vacham no Vahita Srinu. Yapancha Varshas Tapasa. Yapancha Varshas Tapasa. Bhavandevam Mati Tripat. Bhavandevam Mati Tripat. Sunandananda Vuchatu. Sunandananda Vuchatu. Bobora Jan Subhadram Te. Bobora Jan Subhadram Te. Vacham no Vahita Srinu. Vacham no Vahita Srinu. Yapancha Varshas Tapasa. Yapancha Varshas Tapasa. Bhavandevam Mati Tripat. Bhavandevam Mati Tripat. Sunandananda Vuchatu. Sunandanando Uchatu. Sunanda and Nanda said. Bobo Rajan. O dear King. Subhadram. Good fortune. Te. Unto you. Vacham. Words. Na. How. Avahita. Attentively. Shrinu. Hear. Ya. Who. Panchavarsha. 5 years old. Tapasa. By austerity. Bhavam. You. Devam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ati Tripat. Greatly satisfied. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīmad Prabhupada. Nanda and Sunanda, the two confidential associates of Lord Vishnu, said, Dear King, let there be all good fortune unto you. Please attentively hear what we shall say. When you were only 5 years old, you underwent severe austerities, and you thereby greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation responsibly. Nanda and Sunanda. The two confidential associates of Lord Vishnu. Said, Dear King, let there be all good fortune unto you. Please attentively hear what we shall say. When you were only 5 years old, you underwent severe austerities. And you thereby greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. What was possible for Dhruva Maharaj is possible for anyone. Any 5-year-old child can be trained, and within a very short time his life will become successful by realization of Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, this training is lacking all over the world. It is necessary for the leaders of the Krishna consciousness movement to start educational institutions in every part of the world to train children starting at the age of 5 years. Thus, such children will not become hippies or spoiled children of society. Rather, they can all become devotees of the Lord. The face of the world will then change automatically. Om Gyan Timadandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dati Swapadantikam Vancha Kaupa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bievacha Petitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Dhruva Maharaj, this pastime is famous in the 4th canto. Dhruva Maharaj, first of all, when he was very young, he met the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was only 5 years old when he saw him for the first time, which is exceptional. That it's exceptional just to see Krishna directly. to see the Supreme Lord directly is extraordinary. It's something we can only hope to do. To have that actual darshan in this lifetime, that's extraordinary while you're alive. Some of us may have to wait to the time of death, and at the time of death we'll have to receive exceptional mercy to see Krishna directly. But Dhruva Maharaj has seen Krishna directly in this lifetime, and at the age of 5, which is extremely rare. So the Bhagavatam says, Akama Sava Kamo Va, Moksha Kama Radharadi, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. In order for devotional service to be successful, it has to be Tivrena. What is Tivrena? It has to be intense. And Rupa Goswami, he elaborates on this also. If you want to become successful in Krishna consciousness, you have to be intense. If you're not intense, if you're constantly distracted in devotional service, you will never see Krishna, unless you're intense. If your mood is slack in devotional service, or if it's haphazard, or if you're not focused, you won't see Krishna. You won't make advancement rapidly either. The only way you can rapidly advance in Krishna consciousness, it has to become intense. Your application of the process has to be intense, which means your sadhana has to be intense, which means you have to constantly be focused on your sadhana. And that means in order to be focused on your sadhana, you have to be intense. Because you see so many devotees, they struggle with maintaining their sadhana. Brahmacharis, they struggle maintaining their sadhana. Grihastas in particular struggle to maintain their sadhana. Even sannyasis, it can become difficult to maintain their sadhana, vanaprasthas. So you have to become intense in devotional service, extremely focused. Because the material energy throws so many distractions towards you. Prabhupada says sleep and sickness are maya trying to disrupt your devotional service. Just like yesterday, my daughter was sick. She couldn't go to school. She woke up and she wasn't feeling well, so she couldn't go. So I was around her most of the day. And then I woke up this morning and then all my phlegm, mucus is yellow, which means I'm getting whatever she got, whatever the virus is. I apologise for being late this morning. I woke up a little bit late and traffic was bad getting to the temple. But that's the nature of the material energy. That's why if you look at the end of every one of Prabhupada's letters, Srila Prabhupada said, he signs off, I hope this meets you in good health. Every single letter. Certain phrases Prabhupada used every time. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta. So he always used that phrase, your ever well-wisher. And he also wrote, I hope this meets you in good health. And actually he said to Dhananjaya Prabhu, one of his disciples, who was a temple president in Vrindavan in the 1970s, Prabhupada said, health first, then Krishna consciousness. Because if you're not healthy, how are you going to practice Krishna consciousness? How will you become intense in devotional service? How will you make advancement? How will you purify your consciousness? So you have to become intense in devotional service. So intense means do not allow sleep, right, and sickness to disrupt your devotional service or overcome your devotional service. You have to do what is necessary and take care. The body is Krishna's machine. It belongs to Krishna. You have to treat it with respect, because it's a machine, yantra. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the body is yantra, it belongs to Krishna. Just like in the beginning of ISKCON, the early days, one of Prabhupada's servants moved Prabhupada's typewriter with his foot. And then Prabhupada said, you have to pay your obeisances to the typewriter. Because the typewriter belongs to Krishna. It's Krishna's machine. So you can't disrespect it. Same, the body is Krishna's machine. It belongs to Krishna. So you have to respect it. You have to look after it. That is your service. And do not become overcome by sleep. Do not sleep too much. Krishna says in the Gita, don't sleep too much, don't sleep too little. Actually, both are maya. Because if you sleep too little, your intelligence becomes foggy and you become dysfunctional. Too much austerity is not good for devotional service. So it has to be a balance between the two. Not too much, not too little, Krishna says. Don't recreate too much, don't recreate too little. Don't eat too much, don't eat too little. Don't sleep too much, don't sleep too little. Don't work too much, don't work too little. That's the balanced life in Krishna consciousness. So we have to follow this program. And by following this program, what takes place? We become balanced and then we become effective in our devotional service. It's our responsibility. And then you can be intense in devotional service. Sadhana has to be intense. Srila Prabhupada says in the Nectar of Devotion, he says that when you chant the holy name of Krishna, it should be like the child calling for the mother. Prabhupada says in the Nectar of Devotion. So what does that mean? That when we are chanting the holy name, it should have some intensity in the chanting. Prabhupada also says this in the chapter 8 of the first canto of the Bhagavatam, in the prayers of Queen Kunti. Srila Prabhupada says in the purports that there is a quality to the chanting. Not that any chanting will take you back to the spiritual world. The chanting has to have a certain quality. There has to be an intensity. Just like if the child is calling out to the parent, there's intensity. There's tivrena, intensity. And that is what attracts the parent. If the child is just calling out, not so intense, the parent will say, it's okay, they're always doing that. But when there's a certain tone in the voice, then the parent automatically responds, he comes. So same way with Krishna, then he's attracted when he feels there's actually a longing. And chanting the holy name is a cultivation, which is spoken about by Lord Chaitanya himself in the Shikshastika. It's a cultivation, gradually. We have to cultivate. As we go through Shikshastika, you learn how to chant the holy name more intensely, more intensely, more intensely, with more focus. Right? And then in the 5th verse, Lord Chaitanya says, Ai, Nanda, Tanuja, Kinkaram. Ai, what does it mean, Ai? It's calling out. Ai, Ai. Nanda, Tanuja, son of Nanda Maharaj. Kinkaram, I am your Kinkari, or your Kinkara, which means your servant. But there's an intensity. I mean, that verse, the 5th verse, is a very elevated verse. That's on the level of asakti. So that's a high level of Krishna consciousness. But the point is that that's what we're meant to be cultivating over time. An intensity in our chanting, an intensity in our sadhana, an intensity in our service. Then you will attain Krishna. You will not automatically attain Krishna. We have to understand this. It's not a mechanical process. You don't just chant the holy name and attain Krishna. Prabhupada said there's a quality in the chanting. There's a quality in the sadhana. Right? That attracts Krishna. Right? And then there has to be tivrena, which means intensity in our service also. In our sadhana and in our service. Prabhupada said, the ISKCON sandwich. In the morning, morning program. During the day, devotional service. Then, evening program, like a sandwich. So there has to be sadhana, intense sadhana, but there has to be intense service as well. What does it mean, intense service? It means that you have to go outside of your comfort zone to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. It has to feel like there's some intensity there. Srila Prabhupada says, we have to, we have to, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj, he says, you have to shed gallons of blood just to make one devotee. That's intense. Are you willing to shed gallons of your blood just to bring one person to Krishna? That should be our feeling. It's intense. Right? You have to stay fixed on the program, like a heat-seeking missile. Right? They have missiles which look for heat. So they're chasing something, right? And wherever that thing goes, it goes, follows it. Right? Just constantly. We'll not let it go. We'll not let it go. We have to be like that when we're preaching. Prabhupada gave instruction to Prabhu Vishnu Prabhu. He used to be the GBC here in Australia. So he gave instruction. He said, you have to preach with the courage of an Englishman and the heart of a Bengali mother. So that's what it's like when we're preaching. Prabhupada also said, be like a lion in the chase and a lamb at home. So we have to preach intensely. When we're trying to bring someone to Krishna, we have to be intense. But when we're with them, we have to be very soft, like a lamb. But inside, we're like a lion, trying to get them to come back to Krishna. But you can't be like a lion when you're with them, because otherwise they'll think these people are too intense. So you have to be very sweet, but you just have to constantly follow them. Just like on the weekend, we had a nice retreat, a Vedic astrology retreat down at Hare Krishna Valley at the farm. So 7 new people coming who are taking to Krishna consciousness, right on the cusp. Western people, very nice people, right on the cusp. Any of them could just become a devotee at any time. So we have to put in that effort constantly, follow them up, invite them to the next program. Please come, right? Spend time with them. Make them feel like we genuinely care about them. Because we do genuinely care about them. We want to increase the family of Krishna's devotees. So it requires intensity, intensity of focus to make someone a devotee. And it requires intensity in our own sadhana. So what do we learn in particular from this particular pastime in the Bhagavatam of Dhruva Maharaj? One of the main lessons is you have to be intense. Because Dhruva Maharaj was intense. 5 years old, and he was just focused. I am going back to Krishna. Actually, in the beginning, he was not thinking that. He was thinking, I will get a kingdom bigger than my father. Right? He's going to kick me off the throne. You watch. Right? Intense. Right? So, but what was the great fortune? He focused on that intensity on Krishna. He went to Krishna. He said, please, give me this. Right? And finally, he actually brought Krishna into his own vision. He actually got Krishna's association, Lord Vishnu. Right? And then Lord Vishnu says, so what do you want? He said, now I don't want anything. I just want to serve you. Right? Everything else is insignificant. But the point is, he was intense. So if we want to make advancement in Krishna consciousness, we have to become intense. There is no alternative. Tivrena bhakti yogena. So, is quite a famous part of the Bhagavatam, Dhruva Maharaj's pastime. And in a few verses, it says that he gets onto the flower aeroplane and goes back to Vaikuntha. Dhruva Maharaj is about to return. And it's an interesting, very interesting point. When he gets into the aeroplane, what does he use as his step? Death. Death comes. Death is personified. So death turns up. And death comes, and he sees him, and he respectfully recognizes him, and then he steps on his head and gets into the flower aeroplane. So Prabhupada says, for a devotee, there is no fear of death. So this is one way to attest how advanced we are. This is one way to test how advanced we are in Krishna consciousness, right? Because really only one person knows how advanced we actually are in Krishna consciousness. It's ourselves. Because no one else can see what's actually going on in there. Right? I know what's going on in there, and all of you don't. You'd be surprised if you knew what else was going on in there. If you could see everything that goes on in my consciousness, you would be surprised. So we're really the only ones who know. And we're the only one who can really measure how much fear we have of death. It's easy to say it. Yes, I am fearless of death. Bring death, I will go back to the Spirit. I have no fear of death. Easy to say anything. But actually face it without fear, that is a great success. And Srila Prabhupada's name was A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Abhay Charana. Abhay Charan Aravinda. One who was fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna. Prabhupada was actually fearless of death. And we have seen many of Prabhupada's followers also become fearless of death. At the time of death, the fear was gone. Right? That's the great benediction. Right? So if we can attain that state of consciousness where we become fearless of death, then we're successful in our Krishna consciousness. There's no fear. And if you can attain that at a young age, actually attain that realization, you become a very powerful preacher. Because then you have transcended the bodily concept of life. And when you transcend the bodily concept of life, you become extremely powerful in Krishna consciousness. That's why Prabhupada explains that when a sannyasi comes, we offer obeisances to the sannyasi. Why do we offer obeisances to the sannyasi? Prabhupada says, because he has conquered sex life. And if you have conquered sex life, that means you've conquered the bodily concept of life. And if you conquer the bodily concept of life, you become very powerful as a preacher. You become qualified to make disciples all over the world. That's what is explained in the first verse of the Upadeshamrita. Shishya means that any person can become your disciple all over the world because you have become free of the bodily concept of life, of the vegans or the urges of the body. So, it is explained here that at the age of 5, he became Krishna conscious, and Prabhupada explains in the purport that the Krishna consciousness movement is meant to, Prabhupada says, it is necessary for the leaders of the Krishna consciousness movement to start educational institutions in different parts of the world to train children, starting at the age of 5 years. And we see all the devotees in this community, they want a Gurukul. They want a place where everyone can come together, where the children can be trained in Krishna consciousness. And we have to establish this in every single city of the world. There has to be Gurukuls. Where places, it means where the children can be educated in a Krishna conscious manner all over the world. Because then at the age of 5, they have a great chance. The Catholics, they say that if you give them any child at the age of 7, they can make them Catholic for life. At least they used to say that. I don't know what they say now, but that was one of their... They would say, if you give me any child at the age of 7, we can make them follow for life. So if you give any child at the age of 5 to 10, if they get that impression of Krishna consciousness, it stays with them for life. And we see many of the children, they're brought up in Krishna consciousness. Chanakya says, between the age of 5 and 15, you have to be very strict on the child. Because that's the years when you mold them. Very strict. It means that we have to give them discipline so they develop good character and obedience, and so that that is the time when they have to become Krishna conscious. We give them as much Krishna conscious education as possible. And that means later in their life, because you see, it quite often happens, the children get that training and then they divert. Around about 15 they start to divert because the hormones kick in and the mentality changes and the pressures of society, and then they go off. Some of them go right off. But quite often we also see that they come back. Because in the early days there's so many impressions there of Krishna consciousness. Even when you go away, you will come back. Everyone comes back eventually. So better not to go anywhere, because you're just going to come back anyway. So. Just like one devotee came to Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada, I resign. Prabhupada said, how can you resign from Krishna's service? What do? You write a letter to Krishna, write a letter to Radha Vallabha, put it in the hundi, sorry, I'm not serving you for another 10 years. And Krishna reads it to Radharani and said, this guy is very crazy. Who is this person? He's not going to serve me? That's your constitutional position. You have to serve. You can't avoid service. Right? Okay, you can choose not to serve Krishna, but you have to serve. So you can't resign from Krishna's service. So we're better that we just stay. Even if it's difficult. Right? It's difficult for all of us, but you just stay and you serve Krishna. You take a vow, I will never leave the Krishna consciousness movement. You take that vow. Right? And then we just stay and then we serve Krishna no matter what takes place. So that's why it is said, educational institutions, Prabhupada is saying, should be established all over the world. So the children have the opportunity to become Krishna conscious. And then, they won't behave like monkeys. And then, educational institutions, Prabhupada says, they have to be there all over the world for adults as well. Prabhupada was very emphatic about adult education within the society, within the Krishna consciousness movement. Because many of us don't have the opportunity to join while we're young, while we're children. I didn't join until I was 19, so I missed all my formative years. I missed the opportunity to practice Krishna consciousness. I never met a devotee. Up until the age of 19, I never met a Hare Krishna. I really didn't know very much about the Hare Krishnas. I'd heard about them, I knew something, but I never actually met a devotee or seen a devotee until I was 19. And I walked into the temple and then I met my first devotee. First devotee I ever physically saw was Jagannath Ballabha Prabhu. He was a monk. He was walking. I was sitting out there and he was walking back and forth to the deity room, to the paraphernalia room. Walked past me about 3 or 4 times. Like in the morning time when they're doing the cleansing the altar. Right? And he didn't say anything. And I thought, wow. I thought, he's a monk. He doesn't even speak. Wow. I said, he must be on some high level of realization. He's absorbed. And I thought, I just want to become like that. Get completely absorbed, completely detached from this world. So, many of us come later. So then Prabhupada said there has to be adult training. And actually that's one of the principal reasons why ISKCON is established. Right? If you go into Prabhupada's original 7 reasons why ISKCON is established, right? The 7, how do we call them? That's right, 7 purposes of ISKCON. If you look at the original 7 purposes, right? To systematically train society at large, very first purpose of ISKCON. Prabhupada was speaking about education in at least 4 of the original purposes of ISKCON. So he wanted education. We have to be trained in every facet of Krishna consciousness. Cleanliness, Vaishnava etiquette, deity worship, book distribution. Right? There's training for there's courses developed for every single one of these things in ISKCON. So it is necessary that devotees get trained. We have to be trained properly. How to serve Krishna. We all want to serve Krishna, but how to serve him? It requires training. So that's why Prabhupada established educational, and he wanted all over ISKCON, in every temple. And we're fortunate in this temple. We have one of the best educational systems actually in ISKCON. Right? And we still have room for improvement. There's so much more we can do. But still, it is one of the best. Devotees have an opportunity to be trained and educated properly in Krishna consciousness. So even if we come late, we didn't have the opportunity when we were children to be trained, but still, it's not how you begin the race, it's how you finish the race. That's what Krishna is looking at. Krishna is not so worried, Even if you go back to Goloka Vrindavan at the time of death, and you get to the Kunjas, right, and Krishna is there, and then you see Krishna for the first time in the spiritual world. And then Krishna says, can you show me your Bhakti Shastri degree? What was your score? No, Krishna's not going to say that. You can go back to Godhead without a Bhakti Shastra degree. But the point is, by getting a Bhakti Shastra degree, you will be more qualified in this lifetime to prepare yourself to go back to Krishna. Right? It's not about the score that we get. It's about what's taking place in our heart, the internal transformation. Right? But that's why we study Prabhupada's books, and that's why Prabhupada emphasized that we study his books, and study his books systematically, and not to study them systematically, but have examinations on the books. Just like next week, we have an examination in the Bhaktivedanta course. Right? So, why do we have the examinations? Right? Because it just makes the devotees take the course more seriously. Everyone gets very anxious when the exams come, right? And they study Prabhupada's books very seriously and carefully. If there weren't exams, they wouldn't study so carefully and so seriously. That's why we have the exams. But when you get back to the spiritual world, Krishna's not going to say, okay, did you get 77% or 78%? I got 77%. Okay, you can be a golpa, a cowherd boy. I got 78%. Okay, you can be a gopi. No problem. Okay. Krishna's not looking at it like that. Right? But it's a way, once again, devotional service has to be intense. That's how you get purified. And I see when the exams are there, everyone gets intense, they all get anxious. Right? That's quite amusing to watch all the devotees. Everyone gets very anxious, very sweating, and just to get there. And then they all come to you, Prabhu, what score did I get? Did I pass? Everyone gets very intense. It's good. Because it makes you more serious about Krishna consciousness. We have to be serious about Krishna consciousness. So we're seeing here that Dhruva Maharaj, he was only 5 years old. He had an ideal childhood, an ideal Krishna conscious situation. And then eventually he was given the position of being he attained his own planet, Dhruva Loka. And where is Dhruva Loka? Yeah, it's the pole star, which in astronomy they call it the North Star, the pole star. And even to this day, they use it to track, especially in the old days before we had GPS and all these things. The sailors would travel in the northern hemisphere. You can't see it in the south, but you could plot if you're on course by looking at the pole star, because it doesn't move. All the other stars in the sky move, but actually the whole universe is going around this one star, the pole star. It just travels around. And who's on that star? Dhruva Maharaj, right? That's his planet. Right? So Krishna gave him the most important planet in the whole universe. So the basic principle is when you serve Krishna, he will give you far more than what we deserve. That's the basic principle. I see that in my own Krishna consciousness. Krishna always gives me far more than what I deserve. You do a little bit of service, Krishna gives you so much reciprocation. Bliss beyond our imagination. Happiness beyond our imagination. Krishna gives all this, and we don't do that much, actually, if we look at it. But what we get in return is unfathomable. So that is the process. The process that you just give. And when you get back to the spiritual world, you will get unlimited bliss. Beyond imagination. Just like all the festivals are coming up soon. What is the first festival that comes? Julan Yatra. That's my favorite festival. Right? So Radha and Krishna hop onto the swing. In the spiritual world, they do this all the time. Julan Yatra, always. But in the spiritual world, it describes many of the leelas which take place on the swing. In Ananda Vrindavan Champu by Kavi Kanapur, it describes sometimes they go into the forest in the middle of the night, Radha Krishna with all of the gopis. And then when they go into the forest, they go into one huge arena within the middle of the forest. And there are 4 julans, and they're in the 4 directions, and they all swing in towards each other, like from the 4 different directions. And they're very, very big swings, so big that Krishna and Radharani and a number of gopis can stand on each one. So they're like huge platforms, and they start swinging. And as they go back and forth like this in the night, and they come in towards each other, Krishna's on one swing and the gopis and everyone's on different swings. They start playing Holi. And they start throwing colours at each other. Like that. So as the swings come in, everyone throws colours and the swings go back, get more colours, come back in, and they're like that. Bliss beyond imagination. You can meditate like this when we're doing our Julan Yatra. Radha and Krishna on the swings and everyone is coming. We see one thing, but what is actually taking place, that's a different thing. So unlimited bliss. So Krishna is giving you the opportunity to go back and enjoy this unlimited bliss. Or else you can stay here in Albert Park and get sick and clean the toilet. Choice is yours. Okay, we're doing all this for Krishna, so that is liberating us. But the goal is not to stay in this world, where everything is smelly. Just like yesterday at the farm, we had to clear out the septic, and it was blocking up at the farm. So we got darshan of the septic tank. Yeah, we just finished our lunch, and then the truck came to empty out, and then we saw what this material world really is. What it really is. The smell was... That's what the material world really is. So nice. So pleasant. So pleasing to the senses. Material world looks like one thing, but actually it's a completely different thing. It's just a smelly cesspit of unmentionable substances. So that's the reality of the material world. And the poor man who is cleaning out, we were joking with him. We said, we're all standing there, we all had our hands folded. And we said, you are a great soul. Because none of us could do what you do. Yeah, Atuya said, I offer my obeisances to you because I could not do what you do. Every day, imagine doing that as a job, every day. And he wasn't even wearing anything on his nose. I don't know how he does it. That's the material world. So that's your choice. Go back to Krishna and enjoy the swing pastimes, or stay here and clean the cesspit. That's basically the options. Okay. Prabhupada says, go back home, back to Godhead. So, any questions or comments on what we discussed?
So, my question is, how do you measure intensity in devotional service? Do you measure it by the time you're spending, or by the mental anxiety you go through, or?
All of the above. All of the above. The Bhagavatam itself defines devotional service. Savai pumsam, parodamo. Paradama means devotional service. Yato bhaktiya hoksaje, bhakti to Krishna. Ahoituk, apratihata. Ahoituki and apratihata. That's the definition of devotional service. Ahoituki means I don't have motivations why I'm doing it. This is important, especially if you've been a devotee for a long time. You know, some of us have been devotees more than half our life now. And when you've been a devotee for a long time, you get to a point where you really start to assess yourself. Because you've done everything, it's all done. You know, I mean, we've been doing it for so long now, it's like, you know, we've achieved material success and all of those things have happened within devotional service. But that cannot be the driving motivation anymore. You get to a point, I mean, best that you do it as soon as you join, but most of us don't have that realization immediately. But at some point in time, you really have to assess your consciousness. Why am I doing this? What is my motivation? And am I doing it just for Krishna's pleasure, just for the pleasure of the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas? Is that why I'm doing it? So that is called ahoituki bhakti. It means it has to be free from motivations. I'm not doing it because of this or because of that, because I get paid, or because I get recognition, or because I get free food, or because, you know, I have a nice place to sleep, and I get a laptop and all these things. I don't do it because of that. But I do it because I want to please Guru and Krishna and the devotees. So that's a hoituki. And then apratihata. Apratihata means without interruption. Means it doesn't stop. Intense means it doesn't stop. Intense means I don't have motivation. That's actual intensity. And it doesn't stop. It's not like, I serve Krishna on Tuesday, but Wednesday, I go to the movies, and Thursday it's not like that. Every day we serve Krishna. And we want to serve Krishna every day. Not a day goes by where we don't want to serve Him. Have to be regular. So Prabhupada says, there's one letter, quite a famous letter. Prabhupada said, be happy and satisfied. He writes in the letter. He says, I am just giving you all these big projects to keep you engaged. But he says that actually, I am happy if you just preach to one person a day. Even that's enough. That's intense. Just to preach to one person a day and help them become Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada said, he actually says in that letter, he said, we should not be in anxiety. It means if you're in so much anxiety, Prabhupada says that you begin to lose your enthusiasm for devotional service. That means it's imbalanced. Doesn't mean that much anxiety. But then on the other level, right, we can preach to one person a day, but then if you have the capacity, if you're strong in Krishna consciousness, and you have the capacity to preach to 100 people a day, or 1,000 a day, or 10,000 a day, or 2 million a day, then do that. Just like you see some of the devotees now, because basically a lot of the preaching from now on is on the internet, right? And you see some of the devotees getting like 2.4 million views on some of their posts that they put up. Right? So if that's their capacity, then do like that. If you're feeling a bit tired, then just preach to one person. But if you're feeling strong, then preach to so many. So be in anxiety. Being in anxiety means always feeling that you're outside your comfort zone. I'm pushing myself. You have to always feel like you're pushing yourself, not like it's just too relaxed. If it's too relaxed, you're not going to get purified. But not to the point where you lose your enthusiasm. Prabhupada said that, don't lose your enthusiasm. So, it has to be balanced enough. So, we all need time off. We all need breaks. Just like you came on the farm on the weekend. So, we gave you a little bit of time off. You did service all weekend, but also it was a little bit of a break. So, nice balance has to be there. For all of us, we all get tired, so sometimes we have to pull back, refresh ourselves, and then come out fighting again. Is that okay? Any other question? Yeah. No, it means that he didn't leave his body as yet. He was only 5. You go to Krishna Loka when the body finishes. So now, we're reading now, his body finishes. He steps on the head of death and he gets into the Pushpa Vimana and he goes back to Vaikuntha. Like that. But he's 5 years, he still had to live in this world. He reached the level of prema, which is the goal of Krishna consciousness, prema pumata mahan. He reached the goal of Krishna consciousness at the age of 5. So then, because he was pure, he stayed in this world, but he served in this world, and then when he left the body, he went back to Vaikuntha. But we haven't become fully Krishna conscious yet, so we're just staying in this world, doing sadhana, practicing, and then at the time of death, if we're intense enough, then Lord Chaitanya may bless us and take us back. Is that okay? Any other questions?
It seems like a contradiction, doesn't it? That we have to be intense, but at the same time we also have to relax.
Yeah.
And just something that's been puzzling me about Dhruva Maharaj. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur mentions that the level of prema one doesn't one is free from the reactions of offences. And we presume that one is not offensive. But yet we see the pastime where Kuvera has to advise Dhruva Maharaj for, has to correct him for inappropriate behaviour. Right? So, and that he was somewhat offensive to the Yakshas, or they were offensive. They were the cause of the offence, if you like. So, how do can we accept, as you said, that he had reached Brahma Bhakti at the point of seeing Lord Vishnu, and so then he probably, according to that, then he shouldn't be offensive to anybody. Right? And we don't want to see Dhruva Maharaj in an improper, from an incorrect perspective. So how do we resolve that apparent contradiction in his behaviour? If we can assume that he was completely purified on a level of Krishna prema.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Prabhupada in the purports, the way Prabhupada writes it, he says that it could have been an overreaction. So Prabhupada kind of gives like he doesn't, he doesn't really say one way or another definitively. He doesn't say he did, he kind of leaves it a little open. But then Prabhupada, the way he says it, I mean, the lesson that we learn is that, you have to control your anger, because that was the fault. And Prabhupada said, everyone had to come and say to him, okay, enough. Your brother got killed. You could have just gone out and got the guy, but you started taking out the race. So it was obviously an overreaction to the situation. So everyone in the universe had to come and say to him, just, hey, relax. So, that's really the lesson. The lesson is that... Yeah, definitely too much anger. And Prabhupada gives because when anger's there, you become consumed. And if you look at Vritrasura in the 6th canto, he's fighting with Indra. So because of his body, which he has been born into, which is a Asuric body, then he's still, even though he's actually a liberated soul also, he's also a pure devotee, because of that body, he still acts in a particular way. So even when we're pure devotees, because of the body we're in this world, it still has a mechanic or a way it acts. And Dhruva Maharaj, pure Kshatriya, very powerful Kshatriya. When you get angry, he was angry, his brother got killed, he killed him back, but then when anger's there, and you got that much energy, he just erupted. And then it went, and Prabhupada said, possibly too far, because he took out a race. And then everyone had to jump in and say, listen, just back off. You've done enough now. But then we see, a few chapters later, he's going back to Godhead. So that offence did not obstruct his, because if it had have, he would have been the same as Bharat Maharaj. He would have taken another birth And the Bhagavatam would have clearly said that, that was an obstruction to his liberation, his success. So Prabhupada, the way Prabhupada said, he doesn't say that he did do the wrong thing, but possibly, it was overreactive. And also, when you start dealing with people on that level, it's hard to know what's actually going through their consciousness. There's different pastimes in the Bhagavatam when you're dealing with pure devotees, and they seem to be acting in a way which is hard to understand. So it really is hard to understand what's going on in Dhruva's consciousness at that point in time. And Prabhupada doesn't say, he was wrong. He just said, he should have been more careful, and this shows us we have to be really careful about losing control. He did lose control, but maybe because of his exalted position and all the rest of it, somehow it was forgiven or reconciled. If we lose control, maybe it'll be forgiven or reconciled, maybe not. So.
We have to be careful about judging devotees. Very difficult. But Ritrasura is mentioned, but Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that because he didn't lose his Krishna prema, then it's understood that he didn't fall out. Even though he was Ritrasura and a demon, he still had his remembrance of Krishna intact. And who was the other one? Another one. Oh, Jaya Vijaya. They didn't actually fall into the material world. Their mood was, there's nobody else as powerful as us who can satisfy your desire to have a good fight. So because their motivation was to please Krishna, they didn't lose their service mood, if you like. So they're not considered, but Dhruva is not mentioned, so.
Yeah, and you see even with the Pandavas, there's things there that are sometimes seen as possible discrepancies. Possible. Like, Bhima, the way he would speak and act sometimes was not, even Yudhishthira said to him, he said, you shouldn't have spoken like that. But it's kind of his nature. He just kind of speaks.
Well, Yudhishthira, gambles away his wife.
Yeah, well that's why, it came to a point where his chariot, when Krishna asked him, he said, say Ashwatthama is dead. And then he wouldn't do it. And then it says that up until that point in the battle, his chariot was above the ground. But then his chariot sunk to the ground because he maintained Dharma, but he was not serving Krishna's desire. So you see even in the pure devotees there's sometimes discrepancies.
The determination or the tivrena, the focus is on serving Krishna, and there may be some mistakes, but that's not to distract or detract from their bhakti.
Yeah, that's the point.
If you focus on the faults, you miss the point. You've got to look at all the other characteristics that just...
Yeah, and you see in like Kunti was a pure devotee, and there was some things that happened between her and Madri because of co-wife and female nature, and Prabhupada specifically says that. Some of the things she did was not probably as it should have been. But Prabhupada said because she's a woman, even though she's a pure devotee, but because she's a woman, they will act in a particular way. So it's almost like for the pure devotees, and Bhaktivedanta mentions that as well, even for the pure devotees, there's still somewhat of a identification when you take birth in this world with where you're born and the body you have and the country you're in and that kind of thing. So even among those devotees, when they come into this world, they tend to still act in a particular way.
So, here's a thought. What do we do about some of the influences that we've picked up because of the body that we were born in? So, should we take it easy on ourselves? It's all right. You're just you've got some reactions due to some bad karma, but you're actually a lady. So how tough do we have to be on ourselves? Tivrana or Yuktahara Viharasya, we've got to be balanced.
Letting on ourselves.
Don't beat ourselves up too much.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the main thing is that, we have our conditioning. We become purified of the conditioning by using that conditioning in Krishna's service. So we have our attachments, we have our identification, we have our mode of operandus, but we're using that in Krishna's service. And the most important thing is the way we deal with others while doing that. Because it doesn't matter who you are and what your conditioning is, there's a protocol or a limitation in terms of social dealings, and if we cross those lines, it becomes aparad. So regardless of your conditioning, we've all got our conditioning, and Prabhupada knew that about us. We're like the army of monkeys, so everyone's going to be, and Prabhupada, he says, you get a group together, the bamboo is going to rub, there's going to be friction. He says all those things, all the comments are there. But then he said, the proof of how much you love me is how much you cooperate. So, as long as we don't step the line, we've still got our nature, but like that. But that's just bodily identification. But, as long as we don't let it overrule or overrun our consciousness. It's like me, I'm a Collingwood supporter. I'm always going to be a Collingwood supporter. I'm never going to barrack for Richmond, I'm never going to barrack for Footscray. But if that consumes my consciousness, and that becomes like my main focus in life, then obviously that's not conducive to my development of Krishna consciousness. But it's my bodily identification. And I'll always identify at that, because it's just something that's in there from this lifetime. But, it's like all of you, India's in the final of the World Cup of cricket, everyone gets excited, all the devotees, they go nuts. Right? Because it's their identification. Like, South Africa's in there, they don't do anything. It's like bodily identification. But if that consumes your consciousness, that becomes the main thing, then that's wrong. But it's just natural while we're in this world, you have a certain amount of identification. But
and yet when you leave the body, all gone.
All gone, yeah.
All gone. And then you get another body and you start to identify with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the main thing is focusing on Krishna, that's the main thing. And if you become advanced, you just let all those things go. Sava padi vinimuktam. So, any other question? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki?